Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes, recording this video excessively late because I am just still having work kicking my butt. And so this is the book that I punched through at the last minute, called Whiskers on Kittens. The series is a magical romantic comedy with a body count because R.J. Blain, the author, has done a whole whack of these. And normally I wouldn't be doing this because I try to stay off of stuff that has the potential to be controversial, but I was kind of spinning my wheels this week and picked this, and so here we are. Now, the part of this that is paranormal romance is not going to be particularly, controversial unless you're somebody who is fundamentally against that, like, at base level. However, and this is the big however, the thing about this series is that this is an extremely socio-politically motivated series. This author is extremely hardcore left-wing. She is extremely aware of a whole bunch of social issues and social prejudice, and she runs this through her books in a very classic metaphor sort of way, that is to discuss issues of, whether it's whatever kind of prejudice you want to discuss, by using a fictional creature, in this case shapeshifters, werewolves, lycanthropes, however you want to put it, because since they're not all wolves, one of our two protagonists is a snow leopard shapeshifter. Apparently shapeshifters in this universe come in all animal types, lycanthropes rather. They come in all animal types, it's just, wolves are the classic one. But anyways, so you have a fundamental social prejudice against shapeshifters and against were-animals, rather. And what you have then is it opens the the ability to discuss social prejudice against gay people or, religious minorities or what have you, while saying we're being prejudiced against a werewolf. And that way, nobody's being insulted because you're making some sort of accusatory statement about how real people are treated. You're making an accusatory statement about how fictional creatures are treated. So that you can discuss the issue without that. You can discuss the issue of problematic treatment of minorities while not offending an actual minority. Because the thing about minorities and issues with them is that very often you have that cultural complication of something in that minority culture is seen as problematic by the dominant, by the local dominant culture, in terms of, as an example, one might in theory consider the Muslim insistence on women having what ranges between the headscarf to the full body coverage, leaving nothing exposed but your eyes, that there is an argument to be made about, it being a misogynist cultural trait, but at the same time, we have to walk that line of accepting that this is somebody else's culture, and there are things that you cannot judge based on your own social mores, because how your culture works is fundamentally different enough that your perception of things can be inaccurate to what's actually happening. But we all have to walk that line, because while we accept cultures of others, we don't accept people who want to have a multiplicity of underage children as their wives. But that's their cultural practice. So there's always that line that you have to walk between saying we accept these people in terms of their beliefs and their practices, but we don't accept these people in terms of their practices and beliefs, because we believe that this aspect of their beliefs is wrong. And so I cherry picked the Muslim thing just because it's a really, really easy thing to point at that can have controversy about it. I don't want to, I don't want to go overboard and try to, actually have a serious discussion about the issues of hijabs, niqabs, burqas, and the whole thing. It's not an area I know enough in to have that conversation. My point was just, there is an issue there in terms of how those of us from outside the culture perceive it, how those inside the culture perceive it, and how and at what point we feel that this is a violation of our values, such that we have to crack down on another culture, and at what point do we have to accept that this is another culture and we need to shut up and let people get on with their lives. So, using something like a shapeshifter or a space alien or whatever allows you to talk about it without having to directly talk about it. And sometimes, as in certain episodes of Star Trek, the metaphor will be excessively, painfully thin, but the point is that you're saying we're talking about these fictional characters to be able to have that discussion without having that discussion directly and actually offending a whole bunch of people, because we got some detail of the culture wrong, which, rejigs things. Anyways. And so she does a lot. She has a lot in these books that comes out of a social awareness of poverty and how poverty affects people's ability or inability to get ahead in society, the marginalization of people who have special needs of whatever kind, a whole bunch of other things. But one of her big bits in this is the matter of religion, because these books really fling themselves right over the edge. They're absolutely gunning for it. You have sometimes a book that just seems to go overboard in what it's doing, but it's because the author doesn't really know what to do next, and so they sort of throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks. In this case, R.J. Blain is, gunning for the edge, but what you have in this book is somebody who is consciously choosing to do so. This is somebody who is consciously choosing to have a world in which angels are real, and the Egyptian pantheon is real, and vampires are real, and dragons are real, and shapeshifters are real, and witches are real, and sphinxes are real, and gargoyles are whatever they are, which is a really weird, complicated issue. She's like, everything is real. And indeed, angels walk the earth and will show up in a courtroom if you give them a text message saying, hey, can you show up, and tell them, yes, I'm actually telling the truth, because an angel can tell when somebody is lying. So if you are in a courtroom, you can ask for an angel to show up and tell everybody, yes, this person on the stand is in fact telling the complete truth. And there is also two things. And so you have that. The part of this that really kicks into controversy, the part that I don't want people to flip out over, is the fact that you have a god and a devil who are active and interventionist, and the devil is not evil. The devil likes to sort of posture and play the bad boy, but the devil is in fact God's hired jailer, that he has a job, and his job is to torment people who were really, really bad people. And so that's what he does. And while he loves to play at being woo evil, he isn't really. At the same time, God is a very, very active participant in things. Not so much that God has a tendency to show up from heaven and say, Arthur, King of the Britons, but angels wander past. And this book is fascinating in that more angels wander past an inordinate amount in this one than most of the other books in this series. And they'll say, yeah, God asked me to stop by and tell you you're on the right track. By the way, you're going to need this list of felons because you're good. This is the list of people that you're going to need to look into. And it's a weird thing because, you know, those who believe, sure, they believe that God has his hand on the pulse of the world and is doing whatever he's doing, but at the same time, I suspect most of them don't believe that God is going to have a tendency to send an angel around with a laptop saying, by the way, here's the laptop and you're going to need, you know, you're going to need this information to help you take out the trafficking ring going on. That's not how God has ever worked, like, pretty much anywhere. Even God, at his most interventionist in the Bible, did not tend to show up and give people that kind of detailed, functional back and forth. It's certainly, I mean, then again, the Bible does have a certain amount of limited detail, but, you know, we're talking about God intervening close to, if not more than, what you have in the Old Testament, what you have with Abraham and Isaac and Noah and these biblical people who God basically waltzed up to them and said, by the way, here's my list of direct instructions about what you're supposed to be doing. And that's kind of what you get in certain of these books. And when you combine that with this with this social crusading aspect, they're a fascinating, highly entertaining. They're very, very entertaining, but they're bizarre, and they're a strange. They're a strange read. This series. Anyways, I've talked about the series overall enough. So in the last like minute and a half of my timer, yeah. So the snow leopard is a snow leopard with an ego the size of Texas, and she gets herself regularly arrested on petty misdemeanors because she finds it entertaining, but she is in fact a high-powered negotiating lawyer, and an angel and some other divine whatnot basically hire her to hunt down a trafficking ring which had just kidnapped 5 children to traffic, and she basically spends the book hunting them down, except the way that she hunts them down is by phoning like 5 angels and the devil and 2 of the devil's henchmen and having chats with vampires and their, you know, side people and a whole bunch of stuff like this. This is not a mystery. This is I am going to call everybody that I know of who has the supernatural who's an ability to know what's happening to just tell me what's happening so I can, you know, do stuff. Which is what happens, and the wolf in question is kind of just along for the ride. He's really a non-entity. But, you know, she decides she likes him, so he's along. It's a strange book. Very entertaining. All the books in this series are very, very entertaining, but you have to be braced for an extremely strange Christian pantheonic view of things in a world with some very, very unusual world building. So yeah, that's everything, and I will see you all next week.